couple of days ago, someone requested that I make a video about Sentinels going out in Champions, and I thought it was a good idea, but by some weird twist of fate, I happened to have missed basically all of the Sentinels games during Champions, so I knew I'd have to go back and rewatch something if I were to do that. After Sentinels got knocked out, there was a lot of discussion online about what had supposedly led to their fall from grace after such a strong start to the year. And for me, the most interesting thread that I saw about it was from Sideshow, who hypothesized that the problem with NA holistically was their preparation and playstyle. So this is what really made me want to go back and actually watch some of Sentinels play that I missed and see how that idea could apply. The map I chose to go back and really focus on was the Haven that they played against Crew. This was Sentinels' map pick, and Haven has also been the map that Sentinels have really liked and really stuck to ever since Stage 2, so it'd be natural to assume that they would probably win it. But they didn't. Crew won it, 13-11. And aside from Envy once and Xset twice, no other team has beaten Sentinels on Haven since April. When I went back and watched the VOD for this game, it became really apparent to me that Sideshow's point did apply to this game. When Sentinels are playing on the attack, you can tell that a lot of what they're doing is incredibly opportunistic. In round 2, the post-plant setup is almost entirely predicated on Tens dancing around the site, taking quick shots at the opponent. And in the following round, we have a great example of Tens being opportunistic in mid and going for early peaks, this time onto a turret, Dapper capitalizing on the free space on the A side, and the ease for Shaz and Sick to take space on the B side, simultaneously trapping Nagzet with no one to trade off of, and holding back Klaus from rotating through B. None of this was the result of a specific set play. There was no complex or sophisticated utility coordination to facilitate it. We see, for example, Sick use his Trailblazer to enable his and Shazam's push into the B site, but that was a utilization that came from a reactionary decision. Where other teams may invest a lot of utility, particularly initiative utility, to enact a pre-planned execute, Sentinels are way more likely to find a fast way of pushing onto the site that they deem best, and then use a Cypher Cage or something like that to forge a path on the site itself that allows them to methodically bring down a lot of defenders in one go. So instead of a checklist-style attack, they use their utility to bring down a lot of players in a short space of time, regardless of who they are. This was relatively effective against Crew, but one of the roughest examples of their looseness for me has to be on round 10, where they just had no structure to their post plant. All of the players cram back down C long with no way of pressuring from another angle or cutting off site entrances from CT or garage. They get killed by gun pressure and a Hunter's Fury being used against them, and with the spike being on the backside, I feel it's harder for them to defend it anyway. In general, their approach to the attack did work. It was really the defending half where we see how much it hurt. One round where this stood out to me had to be round 15, which actually looked like it was going to be a Sentinels win. They engage onto the A site in the post plant after Shaz backs off the site to convene with the team's push, and once the attacker nanoswarms have passed, all erupt into the site together, Tens using a dash to set up crossfires, and they kill everyone. However, by the time they actually go to defuse, they're 0.09 seconds too late, and they lose the round. But if you actually go back and rewatch the clip, by the time they turn their attention to clear out Hell after removing Mazzino from sewer, both Tens and Zombs were actually in a decent position where they could have gone for the defuse. They didn't need all of the players to keep shooting at that point. So while their responsive play was effective, there was actually no formal call or idea for a specific person to be focusing on the objective. Similarly, in round 17, they really struggle with a site retake and just end up giving up. They get forced out of position on the site early, but manage to retake basically all of the space around it, with Sick in mid and Dapper in garage. But because Crew have a much more structured post-plant setup than Sentinels did, it's way harder for them to find an entry in. And because of this much more robust attacking strategy, Sentinels have to give up, they have to go save. Now, why is this a problem? The problem with this approach is that it's flimsy. Mechanical skill and spontaneity are awesome if you're playing against an opponent who has left holes open that you can exploit, but it's not infallible, and if those holes have been pre-considered, you can only pry at it so hard before you have to find out a way to force the opponent to change their strategy. Playing in the way that Sentinels do means that the way they play is always dependent on the way their opponent plays, and in my opinion, that straight up gives them a disadvantage from the get-go because it means that they're not setting a precedent for themselves from the start of the game. I think if we saw a less mechanically gifted team try and play the way that Sentinels do, we would just see abject failure. And it is a testament to how smart Shazam is as an IGL that they have been able to make this effective for as long as they can, and they can make those on-the-fly decisions. But I think considering over the course of the circuit this year, you know, how much international mixing there have been of teams, we've had all of these events, teams have had so much time to deepen their knowledge of the game, practice more, scrim against new teams, develop new strategies, it is understandable that other teams are going to find more effective ways of playing against Sentinels compared to how it was at Masters Reykjavik. But should they have a roster change? The last thing I wanted to address was the people calling for a roster change, and I think my take is going to sound incredibly boring, but it is that I think it is very risky to start calling for roster changes as an outsider. Who is effective in a team environment is very hard to sufficiently judge unless you are acutely acquainted with the team environment itself. Like, for example, a lot of people have been calling out Zoms, but on a team that is less reliant on a controller player, is it a fair assessment to say he needs to be kicked? Probably not. If Sentinels do decide to adopt a more structured approach in this offseason, it's gonna require an entirely different internal approach compared to what they've been used to up until now. And I think them having Raucus is definitely going to help with that. They have this external coach who's come in, can start providing the fresh ideas, take some of that weight off of Shaz, which is what everyone was so excited about his induction for. Personally, I think it's quite exciting to imagine what that team could look like, knowing what the sheer raw skill on this team is, and the fact that they have arguably one of the best IGLs in the game in Shazam. So those are my thoughts on what is going on with Sentinels right now, and I actually have to say, I think it's a perfectly natural place for a team to go. Especially in year one, where you have a lot of players who've come from other games, so they're very experienced, you're going to see an expedited process of development on many teams. As for whether or not the Sentinels can fix those problems and bounce back and be the dominant force that they were at the start of this year, that remains to be seen, but I think that they certainly have the resources that they need to be able to figure those answers out. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know down below what your thoughts are on Sentinels and what you think they need to do or change, and how you feel about their playstyle right now, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.